Good morning, CLC. Thank you for being here, for your love and presence. In this moment and at this time, I invite you to join me in just loving on yourself a bit. Allowing yourself to flow into that energy of universal abundance, of life, of protection, of guidance, all those things that you want, need, and deserve in your life. Join me now, if you feel so inclined, in taking a nice, deep, cleansing breath in. And as you release the breath, release all that no longer serves you. Go ahead and take another nice, deep breath in, breathing in love and light. And as you release this breath, let your body relax in this moment. And allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal spirit inspires me. Universal wisdom enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand. And let my words act as your own, for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one very special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This could be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in this room or even on this planet anymore. I turn to that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in this room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I am grateful for the good in your lives.
That's not going to do feedback, is it? Having these two here.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
This is the Science of Successful Living. We have a couple more copies just came in for the bookstore. Should you like to pick one up afterward?
It's a great book.
Thank you. It's a great book. Yeah. So I'm going to mangle it for you a little bit today. It's Father's Day. It's Juneteenth week. Both are on some level about freedom. They're about knowing you're free. You're as free as you know that you are. As free as you know that you are. There's several points I want to make today in response to questions that people have, and I've spent all morning trying to decide what order to put them in, and I think I'll start with this one. The question sometimes comes up, as Barker points out to us and will incessantly through the remainder of this series, we are in charge of our own experience. Everybody manages their own consciousness. He said last week, you can't reform anybody, and you don't need to. We think that other people need changing, and if other people were fixed and were right in the head, the world would work. He said, no, you've got to do your own work. You've got to look at your own consciousness. If you're familiar at all with science of mind, the whole thing always comes back to that. It's like, what are we going to do? So the question sometimes comes up. People say, well, if this is true, if we manage our own consciousness and everybody is working at the level of their own understanding with spiritual law, then why do we have social justice action to try to improve conditions for the rest of the world? Now, philosophically, that's not a bad question, but it's got a very straightforward answer. The way that I put it is this. We're here to help each other. We're here to make life easier for each other, not just for ourselves. If we were just here to make life easier for ourselves, we'd live on our own little planet, right? With our own little food supply and all our little needs would be met, and that would be it. But instead we're here, and not just our families, and not just our neighbors, and not just the people close at hand, but we're here to make life easier for everybody. Why? Well, for one thing, it's just the right thing to do. For another thing, when you help somebody else improve the quality of their life, you put into your subconscious mind a belief that life can be improved. And I cannot stress this enough, and I know it's a little mind-bending, but the subconscious mind really doesn't know the difference between you and anybody else. Now, he's got a chapter in the book today that we're going to get to in a moment called Resentment is Ruin. Resentment is ruin. He doesn't mince words, does he? No, he never does, never did. Resentment is ruin. When I resent you into my subconscious mind doesn't know it's you I'm thinking about. All it knows is the generality of pain. All it knows is the impulse of resistance. And it takes it and it runs with it obediently. And it manufactures a corresponding experience, not in your life, in mine, in my own. Here's my foot, here's my gun, here's me firing, okay? This is how it works. I resent you, or I regret things. And I think those things are going to change or apologize for themselves or something. But instead what happens is I pile the regret on inside myself, and the subconscious mind obediently gives me more material to regret. Isn't that crazy? Somebody needs to get hold of this subconscious mind and turn it around, because it's headed all down the wrong track. But really, this is what you want in a subconscious mind. This is what you want in a subconscious mind. You want something that's impersonal, that's impartial, that's unbiased, that's not going to take what you give it and review it and judge it and hand it back. Because if it could do that, then when you hand it positive, expansive ideas of growth, it could look at them and look at you and look at them and look at you and say, really? You? But you've never done anything remarkable before. Why now? Right? And it would, like a judgmental human, refuse to accept the impulse that you're handing off to it. Or even worse than that, it would lie to you. It wouldn't just hand it back and say, no, sorry, we're not doing this. It would say, okay, like people sometimes do, okay, I'll try. Or, okay, I'll get back to you. Or this might take a while. Or, oops. Or this was somehow it made its way into my circular file. And you know, right, and so it would dodge the whole question. But no, that's not how the subconscious mind works. It works automatically. It works, and Holmes and Barker and others have made this point in the simplest possible way. It's like you come in this room, you flip a switch, the lights come on. If the lights don't come on, there's a problem with the lights. There's a problem with the wiring. There's several different, but what there's not a problem with is that the power of electricity has broken, has gone away universally, okay? Even if the whole grid failed, it's like there's still a principle back of this, and if we look at it hard enough, if we follow the thread far enough, we'll be able to repair it. That's what a law is. A law is a principle. If a law is not executing itself in a certain way at a given time, you don't assume that the law has stopped, that gravity went away or anything else. You look at what is the impediment here? What is the anomaly? What is the anomaly in the situation? And you address that and you repair it. So the subconscious mind, they make this point over and over. It's obedient, it's contrite, it's receptive, and it has no opinion of its own, and it won't interfere, and blah, blah, blah. So the other question that sometimes comes up, and we may have more than two of them today, the other question is, well, if the subconscious mind, if the activity of spirit is so subjective and involved and uninterested or uncommitted to a particular path, that it just takes what I give it and runs with it, whether I know what I'm giving it or not, then where did the personal God go who dries our tears, who drapes itself around our shoulders and tells us that we're all right and to hang in there and that things are going to get better? Well, it didn't go anywhere. There's a presence that has a principle. There's a presence that has a way of manifesting itself in the world through principle. But the presence itself of love is hugely involved in your life. The reason we often don't notice it is that it shows up through people and animals and nature and everything that you count as beautiful and lovely in your life. And we have been expecting a supernatural activity. When we pray to God, I get this image in my mind, and I know I've visited it on you before. When we pray to God, we expect to hear the choirs and the clouds part, and the oh Lord, and the hymns break out, and it's like late night TV ad for a religious program or book or something, right? The cloud with the sunbeams behind it, and all of this, and this great booming voice, and all of that, and an angel stepping down and saying, "Here is your new car." Like, really? Like, really? Here's that job you wanted. and then we're like, look, you see? And then it all, sucks itself back up into the clouds, right? And we're like, there, you see, it was a supernatural activity, and now I believe in God because God came into my life. Whereas if you come up and say, hey, have I got a deal for you? How would you like to work for this, or how would you like to have this, or I love you? If somebody comes up and says, I love you, it's like, wait, no, that can't be right, because I'm not worthy. God gives you something, shortcuts it, delivers it supernaturally around the edges, and it's like, cool, I got away with something. But when somebody comes up to you and presents themselves fully into your life, it's like, oh, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve this. But it's all God. Where does our good come from? It comes from other people, principally. And I bring up animals and nature, but we don't have a problem with animals and nature. If your dog comes and loves on you, we're not like, I don't deserve this. I mean, maybe we do, but probably not, because it's like a dog. And the dog, we think, well, the dog, I feed the dog. The dog kind of owes me this, but, right? Right? But when it's a human, all the alarms go off. What do you want from me? What do you want from me? And it's Father's Day. And last month was Mother's Day. And I started to be real glib and say, well, everything I said last month about Mother's Day, just put a hat on it or something, call it Father's Day. It's the same basic deal. And in a respect, it is, of course, because these things are metaphors. The mother is a metaphor for the nurturing aspect of spirit as spirit. The father is a metaphor for the activity of spirit. Or you can flip that, actually. You can make one, and then you get into the whole gender assignment thing, which is an unfortunate place to take it because it skews the conversation and all. Which is why I prefer when Ernest Holmes and others talk about the gardening metaphor, which takes personality and gender and all of this out of it altogether. There's the soil, and you plant the seed in the soil doesn't object to whatever the seed is. And in due time, the seed germinates, and it grows into a plant that contains more seeds. I said this one time, and somebody, well, it has to be a female plant. Okay, I grant you this. But anyway, it has seeds on it, and the seeds grow new plants, and so on. It goes on that way, the process of spirit becoming something that it does. But it's Father's Day now, and in the typecasting that we do in our society, in our culture, painting with a very broad brush here, Dad's the one you think you've got to please. Mom's the one who just loves you unconditionally, and and if you drop out of school or you run away and join the circus or whatever, she might privately grieve and wish you did differently, but when she sees you, she's going to throw out her arms and she's going to love on you, and you can do no wrong. Dad, on the other hand, typecasting-wise, I realize this is not universal for all of us, and in some cases it's completely the shoe on the other foot deal, but nevertheless, Dad generally is the one who sizes you up. Whoever you bring home, too, they size them up. Well, in my day, we blah, 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 and I sure wish you'd have done this instead of that, and there's a little bit of... And so when our ancestors got the bright idea to turn the deity into a humanoid thing, okay, blown up to cosmic proportions, they made it a dad. This is what you and I inherited, going back thousands of years. Thousands of years. So we go to God, hat in hand, and God sizes us up and says, well, it's been the first thing God says, well, it's been a while. Where you been? How long has it been since your last confession? Right? Well, I've been busy, I've been sick, right? And God sizes us up, and God judges the merits of our request and all of this sort of thing, because that's what we've styled it to do. And very irritatingly, when we style it to behave in a certain way, guess what it does? Not because it is that way by nature, but because by nature it conforms to our expectation of it. So if we broaden our idea, we broaden our experience. It's really as simple as that. So the universe is waiting to father you. The universe is waiting to love on you, and it's waiting to accept you in the most non-judgmental possible way. And in this way, not only does your life get better when you think that that's the case, but you introduce something new into the collective consciousness of the species that improves the quality of fatherhood. And I'm up for that. Let's improve the quality of fatherhood. Has a terrible reputation. It just really does. Motherhood has a much more generous reputation, with the pie and the windowsill and all the rest of this. But fatherhood has a lousy reputation. I'll give you an example. Something Willie Nelson said one time as kind of a throwaway comment. He said, in my small town where I grew up, he said, the population never increased. Every time a baby was born, a man left town. Think about that. Think about that. And everybody who heard that laughed, and it's put in a clever way, but it rings true. It rings true to a certain quality of experience. It says men dodge responsibilities. Men go over the next hill, the horizon. There's always something out there that's waiting for us, and we're trying to reclaim something deeper than that, more committed than that, more beautiful than that. There's a whole lot of men's work going on in New Thought right now. Our own David LeMaster is starting a group. Reverend Amon, who's been our guest here a couple of times, has a group going too. And these are just two of many, where men are looking at the issues of being men in the culture. And there are all kinds of, Joe Jackson wrote a song about this 30 years ago. There are all kinds of different energies and stuff. But we've got to reclaim that, but we have to be the ones who do it individually through the management of our own consciousness. And we have to reclaim the idea of freedom, that we're here for each other. We're here for the people who are not liberated. Juneteenth commemorates the fact that quite a while, about a year and a half after the Emancipation Proclamation, it finally got announced to the enslaved people of Texas on the wharf in Galveston. Now it's a national holiday. And like all national holidays, what a lot of people do is they party. And that's fine. But there's a message to it as well. And the message is not only about that event in history, it's not only about the ramifications of that event, it's about the fact that for all of us, we're only as free as we know we are. And a lot of us stand inside a locked room that has no door. The lock doesn't work. Well, it's not a good metaphor, but you get the idea. There's, if you push against the door, it falls open, and you didn't know that because you never tried, because it looked like a door. It looks like a wall. It looks like we're walled up inside these things. But then we hear the word that we're free. How free are we? We're free to manage our own mind. We're free to expect the best out of ourselves and each other. And in that way, the chains fall off. And we're free. They didn't fall right off for the enslaved people when the proclamation was read, because it was said that your relationship to and fro was no longer one of master and slave, but it was now employer and employee. And on paper, that sounds just and fair, and that's not how it rolled out. There wasn't a willingness to let's immediately create a payroll here and let's balance the accounts. Inequity, not at all. Because there's a sense in the mind of the property owner, there's a sense of entitlement, of justification. But I need this. I need this. I need this land. I need this work. I need this agricultural output or whatever. And I need unpaid people to provide it. Or I can't afford to do it. And then where are we? Well, where we are then is someplace better than where we are now, isn't it? Even if you have to go through certain adjustments. Just like when people say, well, I have this factory, and we got to pollute the water. If we don't, we can't afford to run the business. Well, then don't run the business. Just don't do it. Do something different. Because there's a higher way than moving other people around. So we look at this time and we say, well, there's a sense of freedom now that we can begin to experience. There's freedom that we can extend to one another. Barker makes the point, free them in your thought. You free them in your mind. I've heard forgiveness expressed beautifully. There's a cottage industry in forgiveness, as you probably know, in the self-help publishing field. More books, more workshops, more stuff on how to forgive and what it looks like when you do. And out of all of that I've sifted through, the line I prefer the most at this point is that forgiveness is giving the other person, your opponent, your enemy, whatever you want to style them as being, giving them, maybe for the first time, unharmed passage across your mind. You think of them, you think of them, you think of them, you think of them, and they're out the other door. In one ear and out the other. You don't think of them, slap them around a little, think of them and send them on their way. You don't think of them, devise horrible tortures for them, and no. You don't even think of them and haughtily turn away from them in judgment and stuff. No. Unharmed passage, unmolested passage through your mind. To get to that point takes work. Takes such work that a lot of us won't do it. A lot of us won't do it. I'm going to keep my little private grudges and justify them. If you knew what I'd been through, we will say to each other, you wouldn't question the fact that I'm hanging on to this. And no one else can free us from this attachment. And nobody else is convinced by what we say, but may use it to ill effect in their own life. Say, well, Joe over here hasn't forgiven, and I've been through worse than he has, so why should I? And pretty soon everybody just agrees that we're going to have this. And it's taught in some circles that you have this compartmentalized consciousness, which you frankly do not. There is not a prosperity consciousness and a career consciousness and a relationship consciousness and, on Sunday morning, the God consciousness and all of this, and that you can keep one thing squirreled away over in this part of your life and not have it infect all the rest of it. That's just not how consciousness works. Why? Because the whole thing is based on oneness. It's all based on a unity of all of the aspects of the self. R.D. Lang, I think it was, called it the undivided self, the great psychologist. The undivided self, there's the individuation within the undivided self. In other words, you do have aspects of who you are, but they all affect each other. And there's an architecture of this self that's a unity. That's a unity. And this is why we can't have one style of relationship with the deity and another style of relationship with each other and expect to, quote unquote, get away with it. Because consciousness is a unity. So it takes everything and it goes with it. So we work on this and we look and see who hurt me and why do I think they did and who hurt them. And you've heard the expression, I'm sure, hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. That doesn't let the people who hurt people off the hook, as he's about to tell us in what I'll read you. It doesn't mean that suddenly we have this kind of doormat approach to human relationships. But there's a no person is under a compulsion to do you harm, says Barker. These are the weirdest glasses. Remind me next week, not bring something else. Deep within everyone is a desire to be understood, appreciated, and to give to others the best they can. All that the Infinite Spirit asks of you is that you grow in consciousness and in usefulness as a human being. It does not demand that you put up with nonsense and give it a false label of humility. Whoa! Have we not been taught in our early religious training to have this false, and you see, God, I'm such a martyr here, these people, you see how they, and I hate them and I wish, but oh God, I'm really doing, no, it's it, right, the divided consciousness there, no, a false label of humility. It asks you instead to rise in the dignity of your spiritual nature, which I talked about 2 weeks ago, and live with authority over your experience. You then see the stupidity of resentment, for it allows the image of another person to govern your emotions. And that's it in a nutshell, isn't it? Allowing another person to govern your emotions, especially pointless and indefensible when the person who's governing your emotions hasn't been on the planet in a really long time, but they still live in your head. And I remember reading a story I've shared with you before from Garrison Keillor in his Lake Woebegone material. Some may recall, Prairie Home Companion. He had a way, still has a way of capturing human relationships in everyday life in an interesting kind of way. And so there are these two sisters who are on their way to visit the grave of their mother. And this is in Minnesota, where everything he writes about takes place, and it's winter and it's cold, and they're in the car with the heater on, and they've each brought flowers to put on her grave, and they do this every year at this time, or every month at this time, or whatever. And these two women are sitting in the car, and because it's really cold and now it's started to snow, they decide to wait until the weather lightens up a little bit before they get out of the car and trudge up the hill to their mother's grave to lay the flowers. In the meantime, they get to talking. They start reminiscing about Mom. This could be Dad. This could be anybody. But, they start talking about, and the one says, every time I cook something, I have her in my head. And she's telling me, careful, you'll burn yourself. You'll drop that. You're not very good at this. You're kind of clumsy, and I have to shake that off. And the other one says, well, every time I do laundry, I have her in my head, and she's telling me, be careful, you'll I don't know, wrinkle it or use too much bleach or something. And every time they do stuff, and every time I'm parenting the kids, or every time I'm this or that or the other thing, I have her in my head, and she's telling me I'm not doing it well enough, and I get the feeling that I'm not good enough. And these two women, and they are, and then they're topping each other's stories, and they're getting louder and louder and louder. And finally they get out, notice the snow has stopped, and they get out of the car, and they go up the hill to her grave, and they take all their flowers, and they just tear them up in little pieces and dump them on her grave and walk off. And the way the story was put, it's like, well, that's sad and unfortunate and all that. And I'm thinking that's an emotional healing right there. Because it really doesn't matter. Mom's gone. She's not there in that grave. You know that. And this whole thing, this has been an experiential process for these two women to try to work through certain things in their consciousness. So we do what it takes. But we notice that we have people that live in our heads that we've carried around for a very long time who are telling us unhealthy things because they never got it worked out right. And that's too bad, but it's not a sentence against us. A couple more Barkerisms for you. He says, people are your easiest means for giving and receiving love. We're looking for a fundamental acceptance of the world as a good place in which to live effectively. That really says a lot right there. A fundamental acceptance of the world as a good place. Instead of a rotten place that we're trying to redeem, it's a good place in which we can thrive. If you consciously work with the ideas that the infinite is impelling into your consciousness, your subconscious mind has to accept them and act upon them. The subconscious cannot refuse any idea, mood, nor demand upon it. Being impersonal, it doesn't know what you are delivering to it in your everyday thinking. It knows only how to produce according to the materials given it. It is a doer, not a knower. It is a productive field, but does not know what it's producing. So not only will the field of mind not reject the seed that's planted in it, it's not even conscious of what the nature of that seed is, right? It just provides nutrients and lets things follow their own course. So it only knows to produce according to the materials given it. Again, what am I giving it? It is as easy to demonstrate a creative life. He mentions our name in there. Did you know that? This is long before, but there you are. It is as easy to demonstrate a creative life as it is a dull one. The same mental equipment is used for either. The contemplation of problems destroys creativity. The intelligent search for solutions increases the creative capacity of your mind. There always is more power in good than in evil. If this weren't so, the world would long ago have been overcome with evil. It makes sense. But today, good is still the greatest commodity in life, and love has more victory than hate. You cannot afford to let your problems ruin your creative thinking. Worry is a false luxury that creates damage at the subconscious level. It is the introduction into the creative process of a factor which must, by its very nature, disrupt the creative flow of constructive thinking. Fear, worry, and deep anxiety are to the metaphysician what the devil is to the usual churchgoers. And there's an evangelical minister of some prominence who will talk about positive thinking, metaphysics in a roundabout, non-committal kind of way, and then say, mention the enemy. And he will say the enemy brings out a flip chart that lists all the reasons why you can't be you. All your limitations, all your drawbacks, all your sins and this is what the enemy puts on the flip chart. And by the enemy, he means the devil. By the enemy, he means to me, negative thinking, negative believing, negative dwelling. That's all it is. That's the only enemy there's ever been. It's the shadow self of unhealed stuff that presents itself in an unclear kind of way that we mistake for the truth of who we are and go with that, when in fact it's just a reflection of old thinking. So all of these teachers implore us, do the best that you can with what you've got to try to liberate yourself from the wheel of suffering, as our Buddhist friends put it. Liberate yourself from the wheel of karma by freeing yourself, by freeing everybody else who lives in your mind. Realizing that we're in this together. Realizing that you get back what you give out. Maybe not in the moment. Maybe you're at that famous four-way stop where everybody arrives at the same time and nobody knows who's to go first. And you wave somebody ahead of you and maybe it wasn't really their turn and you think, well, I wonder what's in store for me for that. Well, maybe in the next moment at the next traffic circle or something, someone waves you ahead of them, or maybe it's next week or next month or next year, and maybe it's in a much bigger way than just that because all of this stuff has been piling up, and somebody comes to your relief. Somebody comes to your relief. Somebody comes to your relief before you even know you need somebody to come to your relief. And they bring you some information. They bring you some awareness about this, just like whoever told you about this stuff. Who told you about this? Who told you about metaphysics? Who told you about religious science? Has it been good to you? Has it been useful in your life? You know? Well, they didn't know what you were going to do with it, but they just had to say. We were talking about this the other night, reasons to become teachers of this material. I became a teacher not because I heard a voice out of the cloud saying, here's your spiritual call to the ministry. I would have freaked out if that had happened. I would have gone and run screaming. Instead, I sat and listened to somebody kind of like me saying things kind of like I am, and I thought to myself, I want other people to know about this. I got to make that happen. Let's get some people together and talk about it, and the rest is kind of history. Okay, so I'm going to close with this. This is a Barker-style treatment. I got to get a new copy of this book because every time I put little stickies in here, it pulls away a piece of the page when I remove it. It's all brown and crumbly. But we've got new, fresh ones here, and it's in print. You can easily get, relatively cheap. All right, you ready for a treatment? Now, remember, he jumps right into it. There's none of this long-winded run-up like I sometimes give, but he just, boom, you know. I am one with all the life, love, and truth there is, for I am one with God. I am one with every person, for in each is the image and likeness of the perfect life. I take full spiritual control of my mind and emotions, and I refuse to be disturbed by person or situation. No resentment can find acceptance in my consciousness. I have spiritual understanding of all whom I know. I behold in them the love of God which blesses and benefits me. The actions and words of another person have no power nor authority within me. I am at peace with myself and with others. I am the only thinker in my world, and I guard my emotions night and day to maintain my freedom from others. The only relationship I can have with any person, then, is one of love, understanding, and peace. I am a free and uncluttered expression of God, and so it is.
Right. I'm just waiting for the front row to settle down here. I thought a metaphor was 5 or more. Beyond 4? Oh, more than 4? Yeah, that was probably a little bit too deep, huh? You know, we either have or have had the air conditioning system in the other building replaced, right? We're in the midst of doing it, and also we're going to... This is fixed, okay. That's fixed. So, bottom line is, it costs money, you know. And when we have expenses like this that we don't expect, and all of you know, if you live in this part of the world, you need air conditioning. And air conditioning systems are not cheap. So if you can be generous with us and give us a little bit more towards this, that would be really good. Some people have already pitched in, and we just appreciate whatever you can do. So as we come up to giving time, just want to thank you for all that you do for us. We appreciate that. And as our usher stands up and makes his weary way to the center there, he's imitating being weary, actually. Please say with me, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
One is I get to do a treatment to turn you loose into the world for the week. And I was thinking about the mothering energy and the fathering energy. And there's another way that you can look at it from the aspect of the tarot, from the emperor and the empress. Because in the tarot, in the major arcana, the empress is creative energy, but it is uncontrolled, unstructured, and we all know that when we have a whole lot of energy but no structure, not a whole lot gets done. And so what the emperor is structure. It is what gives form to that creative energy, which allows things to get done. You need both. Does it have to be male and female? No, but that's another way to look at it. And that is my gift to you. So now I invite you to consciously enter into the sacred with me. It's all sacred all the time. But when we consciously enter into it, when we set that line in our consciousness and say, I am entering in now, this is sacred work. It's a lot like, I guess, Raymond Charles Barker saying, subconscious, now hear this. There is one power, one presence, one life, one love. Each and every one of us are vessels for that love. When we accept that responsibility, when we accept that challenge, when we accept that grace, amazing things happen. So I speak my word now as a vessel of that love, in a demonstration of that presence. That we hold in our hearts all of the people who have been touched by the weather, in whatever way that they have been touched, that they know that the hand of Spirit is with them, that the love of Spirit surrounds them, and that more importantly, the material resources are scrambling to reach them now. And as we move forward into this weather, we know gentle winds, easy rain, that the earth receives what it is that the earth needs from the weather and no more. And I know for each one of us in the room, a gentle week, full of freedom, full of joy, full of knowing, full of the acceptance of who we are, beloved expressions of the divine. And I release my word with gratitude, knowing that it is done. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it. I trust it. I use it. And I love it. And so it is. So it is.